Baffling mysteries. Unsolvable crimes. Morgue technicians making queasy faces. These are the cases of Dr. E, medical examiner. Dr. E begins her day by confronting one of the most shocking cases ever to pass through her morgue.
We had a guy come in who his relatives said was some sort of shepherd boy. And supposedly, the shepherd boy had been crucified and was slain for the sins of mankind. I don't know. Sounds kind of dicey to me.
The victim, a shepherd boy named Attis, was the son of King Croesus of Lydia. According to the witnesses, Attis was crucified on a tree during an event called Black Friday. The case of Attis raises many questions in Dr. E's mind. Who could have crucified Attis? Why did they crucify him? And what exactly is the relationship of Attis to Japanese trigonometry? Dr. E begins with the external exam, looking for any evidence of trauma to Attis's hands or wrist to see if he was crucified.
You know, the witnesses said this guy was crucified. I don't see any marks on him that look like a crucifixion. There's absolutely no forensic evidence that this guy was crucified.
But Dr. E does find something else, and it shocks her.
Oh my. Well, I don't want to be indelicate here, but let's just say he wouldn't be singing bass anymore if he was still alive.
Contrary to the report Dr. E had received, Attis had not been crucified. Instead, Attis had castrated himself because he was upset over the death of his girlfriend of many years, Sybil.
What had happened is that this poor guy was about to marry his girlfriend, and before that could happen, some monster named Attis showed up at the wedding and caused mass hysteria. Unfortunately, his girlfriend died, and Attis got so upset that he committed suicide.
The next day, Dr. E is ready to send the body of Attis back to the funeral home. But something unusual was happening that stopped her in her tracks. Something Dr. E had never seen before.
I came in the next day. I couldn't believe it. His body wasn't decomposing. His hair was all grown out, and his little finger was twitching. But he was still dead.
The mystery deepens as Dr. E gets a phone call from Attis's relatives, claiming he had been resurrected from the dead.
And I'm like, no, he hasn't been resurrected. It's just his hair and little finger. Everything else is still dead.
Unfortunately, with these signals still apparent, Dr. E faces a serious problem.
Well, obviously, I can't sign the death certificate for this guy as long as his little finger is still moving. So I did the only thing that was possible. I took care of that little finger.
Dr. E closes the mysterious case of Attis with some final thoughts.
Why do people say this guy was crucified? There's no evidence he was crucified, much less on Friday. People can be real weird sometimes.
Unfortunately, Dr. E has no time for any further thoughts, because almost immediately, her next case is wheeled in for autopsy.
This was really an unusual case. Apparently this guy had won some sort of vacation on a game show, and when he got there, somebody killed him. Oh boy, the Y incision is going to be a real bear on this one.